So we're going to talk about knowing and being known, opening up the inside of ourselves in pursuit of intimacy. We want to start with a certain amount of prep work before we go into intimacy, but now we're there, okay? Just a quick story. This guy kept forgetting his wife's birthday and their anniversary, so he went to the florist and said, just deliver the flowers on this day and this day. And one day he walked in, the florist had delivered the flowers, and he said, nice flowers, honey, where'd you get them? So he totally forgot that he had done that. I'm not sure why I put that illustration in there, but it's cute. So anyway,
is that autobiographical?
No. You mean me doing that?
No, you're not.
No, Michael? No, he doesn't forget our birthdays. He's more attentive, and anniversary, he's more attentive than I am, actually, to dates and stuff. He's awesome.
I actually have a question about that,
Yeah?
since we have a little group here. How many people here are you would say you are sensitive to your spouse remembering your birthday? Okay, how many people would say, yeah, that's important to you, you're sensitive to that? And then how many people would say, if they remember or don't, I don't care, really? Also, it's like 50-50.
It's like half and half, yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Why? Because you remember? Because you remember and it's very important to you? Is it important that she remembers yours?
Violetta, it's very important to her that I remember.
Okay, and what about the other way?
I could care less.
You don't care?
I sometimes forget. There's been several times where Violetta's been like, your birthday's tomorrow. And I'm like,
oh,
you're right, my birthday's tomorrow. She's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, go rock climbing. Like, I don't want to do anything special. I just want to do what I do.
But do you remember? Typically? Yeah.
Oh, she remembers everybody's.
Everything.
She knows all the niece's birthday, the nephew's birthday. She knows everything.
That's great.
I'm one of these people that I'm great with names. If I meet somebody, I just can remember their name.
Yeah.
But dates are terrible with me.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know my mom's birthday.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's why the Morocco trip was so special.
Because you actually remember.
Yeah, that's right. Because I well in advance, I prepared.
Michael won't let me celebrate his birthday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So your birthday present to him is to do nothing.
Exactly.
I feel a little bit the same way.
Yeah.
But Violetta doesn't like it that way. She wants to do something.
Get a little bit older, you'll feel even more strongly that way. He doesn't want to remember.
But I was interesting. It's about 50-50 here.
Yeah, it was. And so you have to be sensitive to that, because if your spouse is one of the ones that's really going to be heartbroken. Exactly. So what happens in a marriage is we often start to see, and this is part of our selfish default nature as human beings, we start to see our spouse only in terms of how they impact us. So it's like, he wants the house a lot colder than I do. She spends money and spells and doesn't warn me. He never supports me in my accomplishments. She laughs super loud in public and embarrasses me. He doesn't spend time with the family. She messes up the car. You're only seeing that other person in respect to how they impact you. You start being kind of like roommates, where you're sharing a space and other aspects of life, but you're not really seeing that person as a human. So what I think needs to happen to kind of ward that off is what I call the Velcro effect, where we actually talk about the inside of our souls to the other person. When you open up what's inside of you to another person, it's like Velcro. You'll stick to that other person. There will be a bond. It's amazing. We started a Bible study at the beginning of COVID. There's about 50 people still coming to this online Bible study. We decided we did not want to dissolve it just because the churches were back open, because we had formed a congregation. Yeah. And the reason reason we were able to bond was because we have breakout groups. The whole tenor, the sort of environment that we're creating in that Zoom group, we'd never met each other in person. But even on Zoom, we were able to bond because we talk about what's going on inside of us. Beautiful. And it's a regulated thing. You have to be careful with it, but it's so important. So in marriage, it's very important that you open up the inside of yourself to the other person. Now, I know men are going to push back a little more on this because they're not as inclined to talk about their emotions, but I'm going to try to make it very doable for men and women. But here's just a principle. As sex physically synchronizes partners, emotional, quote, sex, or the joining of the private inner parts of our souls will emotionally synchronize us. So it's very similar, bonding physically with bonding emotionally. And here's the thing, and this is to you guys, or women even, who don't like to talk about feelings. We always express our emotions. We either do it directly in words, which, as we have identified, gives us a level of mastery over those emotions because you name it and you what? Tame it. That's right. You're owning it. You're exercising dominion. So you're going to do it directly in words, or you're going to do it passive-aggressively, where you're not really speaking what's inside of you, but you're conveying it in a way that is not verbal and sometimes nasty, or you're going to internalize those feelings and they're going to cause you stress and health issues as the result. Everybody wants to know what you're doing, David.
Oh, this is too good. Never mind. Carry on.
The curiosity level, I think, is what happened?
Well, somebody thought that Mike looked like Nathan Renner.
He does a little bit.
So I sent a picture.
Just the hairstyle.
I sent a picture of Nathan next
Yeah.
to Mike. We did. Who, did you guys?
Wait a minute. What happened?
Well,
Is that Nathan?
She held the picture,
Oh.
and then so Nathan responded and said, "Who's that handsome man?" And Mike owns the same shirt.
Oh, no.
Look at that shirt.
No
Anyway, I can show you
way.
guys on my phone later. It's so funny.
That is
So I just had to share it with him.
We can put it up on the slides.
Sorry.
That's so good. Yeah, it's the hairstyle. Nathan has the same hairstyle. So this is a conversation I have with my husband frequently. I say, I feel hurt, for example. He says, I don't want to talk about feelings, I want the facts. And I say, the fact is, I feel hurt. Can I get a little, That's a good comeback, right? But it's absolutely true that acknowledging, okay, this is for the guys here. You don't like talking about your feelings, but acknowledging the reality of them is not only a form of mastery, name it and tame it, but it's also, you're just acknowledging the facts. You're just saying, here's what's happening right now. You're not letting them control you. In fact, you're actually putting yourself in a position where they are not controlling you. Because if you don't acknowledge them and if you don't regulate them, they will regulate you.
That's right.
And you don't want that if you're a man. And you don't want it if you're a woman. You want to be master over your feelings. You don't want them to master you. But the first step of that is acknowledging them, the reality of them. So I introduced to you affect labeling. It's the fundamental, the bedrock of emotional regulation. When we label emotions, it tends to attenuate them. That means taper them down a bit, make them less intense. Here's how you do it. It's the simplest thing on earth, but probably the most powerful tool that I will give you this whole weekend is simply the habit of saying, I feel, fill in the blank, whatever you're feeling in that moment. Don't tell everyone. Don't tell the mailman. He doesn't care how you feel, unless you're friends. You don't have to tell everyone in the bank or wherever you are. You don't have to tell everyone at all times, but tell God, tell yourself, and tell your partner. This is your life partner. You can be honest about what you're feeling in most cases, or in many cases. Make sense? Yeah, totally. Fair enough? Okay, good. Look at the Psalms. Lots of affect labeling going on here. I am lonely. My life is spent with sorrow. He's not sparing in the intensity of his expressions. Shame has covered my face. I will be glad. My eye wastes away because of grief. So I like to talk about chickens. I have 3 chickens. I met 2 women this morning. One has 60, and if I'm remembering correctly, one has 100 and 200. So never criticize me for being a chicken lady because I only have 3. Well, 6 of them have been eaten by coyotes, so, yeah. So I have 3. So here's the thing about chickens is they really do come home to roost. So my chickens are free range. They run around the yard, tear up my garden, make all kinds of trouble, poop everywhere. But they do come home at night. And it's kind of like that with emotions. They come home when it starts to cool off. I live in Orlando. It's very hot, during the day. You don't even know where they are. They're in the bushes somewhere, staying out of the sun. But as soon as the cool breezes start to blow, they come back home. And that's what emotions do. When the searing judgment and criticism that typically characterizes relationships goes away, and the cool breezes of acceptance and love start to blow, then the emotions will come out, and we can let them kind of walk around the yard, so to speak. So this is also a very important tool in your toolbox as you try to recover that friendship with your spouse and as you try to create that environment where these little emotions will feel free to come out. Be curious. Even though you think you know everything that needs to be known or that could be known about your partner, still be curious. There are things you do not know. My husband and I have this practice where we're driving, and rather than listen to the radio or be on our phones, if you're not driving, and making the other person drive all alone, we start asking each other what we call open-ended questions. And so we have a number of them in the worksheets for you. Just questions that gets them to unpack something detailed and interesting about their life. So I'll ask maybe, hey, what's your favorite meal? Describe it to me, soup to nuts, the whole meal, And he'll go through this long, elaborate description. Then he'll ask me to describe my favorite meal. And we just ask these open-ended questions, and it really makes for some interesting communication. Turns out the other day he asked, who are you looking forward to seeing in heaven and why? And I told him, I don't remember what I said.
It's a funny story.
And then I turned it around and I said to him, who are you looking forward to seeing? And he said, Eve.
Who says that? Who says that?
You have to understand, my husband is so pure. Like, there's not a lustful, like, he's a man, but he's never...
He's very sweet and...
Yes, so, and I'm sorry for the wives that have gone through this, but he's never looked at pornography. He had one thing happen when he was unemployed, down in the dumps, and all of a sudden, what spiders on the web do, and they put these images, particularly in front of men, this swimsuit edition cover popped up on his computer. He has no idea why. He's not great with technology. And he came and told me about it later. And I was like, okay, what'd you do? And he said, well, I X'd out of it. And I said, well, why? And he said, I looked at her eyes. And he felt so sad for this woman who he knew was being abused and trafficked, likely, or something, or destroyed anyway. And that's him. But he wants to see Eve when he gets to heaven. And I didn't even ask him. I think I did ask him why. I said, well, why? And he was like, because I heard she's really beautiful. That was an interesting... I'm still trying to figure out if I should be jealous of Eve or not. Like, that just seems weird. It doesn't make sense.
I have asked that question of so many people, like, who do you really want to... And never one time, literally hundreds of people I've had this conversation with, never have I heard Eve. That's such a funny answer.
What's that?
She'll be there. Well, we'll
really?
find out. Yeah, well, Adam did too. New Testament blames it on Adam, not Eve.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll find out when we get there.
Well, I hope he's not too crushed if she's not there. We'll see. And it's interesting because the kind of actress, beauty queens that he's attracted to, like Grace Kelly is the number one, like, to him. And she was pure, her appearance was more pure than sensuous. Anyway, so you cannot be curious and judge at the same time. So ask questions of your spouse from a place of loving curiosity. We give you a lot of exercises and worksheets, but if you forget everything or you're out of touch with it, just remember to ask questions from a place of curiosity, and that will help your marriage. It'll improve your marriage. Okay, another principle is that process matters more than content. The content is what you're dealing with or what you're talking about or what's happening in your relationship. The process is how you talk about it. Process is more important than content. I'll give you an illustration. My husband and I, getting ready to go to church, have gotten in the car morning after morning, and I'm not sure why, but this is not working. Did this die? Maybe? Whoops. There we go. Got in the car many mornings, morning after morning, and this is exactly what happened. Driving down the road, he doesn't put his seatbelt on. It starts to ding. I think about him flying through the windshield should the unthinkable happen. I'm also very aggravated by that ding, and he's not going to put his seatbelt on. Like, he's just going to drive the whole way without putting his seatbelt on. Who does that? He does. That's the answer to that question. So I will gently remind him, could you put your seatbelt on? That bell bothers me, and I just think it's better. It's more safe. And he'll reluctantly put it on. The next week, the same thing happens. leaves the seatbelt off, driving down the road, ding, ding, ding. I'll gently say, please put your seatbelt on. He'll put it on. The next week, the same thing happened. So this happened probably for 3 months in a row. And then I started to get aggravated. I started to think, I'm telling you every time to put your seatbelt on, like I'm your mom or something. You know I don't want you to drive with that thing off, and you know the bell bothers me, but you keep waiting until you can see how aggravated I get with this whole thing, and I'm very tempted to go into that mode. But then I remember process is more important than content, and I decide to have a conversation about what's happening in this seatbelt dilemma. And I say, have you noticed that every week we get in the car and the bell goes off and, it bothers me and I ask you to put the seatbelt on, you put it on. Have you noticed that happens like week after week after week? And he said, yeah, I noticed that. And I said, I'm just curious. What do you think is going on here? What's behind it? I would think, it'd be something you just kind of do after a while, but, apparently that's not the case. Talk to me about that. We had this great conversation about why he waits until I remind him to put the seatbelt on. You know what it turned out to be?
I knew this before she gave the punchline.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, you tell it, but I'm just so happy that to me it makes so much sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But the hack is to buckle the belt behind you. That's what he needs to do.
That's what he needs to do. But I still wouldn't be okay with that because then, there's
Yeah, I know, but at least you don't have to hear the ding.
Yeah, exactly. What'd you say?
You don't have to hear the ding, ding,
Yeah,
ding.
exactly. But anyway, it turned out to be because he didn't want to wrinkle his shirt. Yeah, and David figured that out before.
Because I do the same thing. I hate having my shirt. I hold the seatbelt away from my body because I don't like that.
The whole time you're driving, you're like...
Actually, what I do is I just hang my shirt up on a hanger in the car, and I just change when I get to the parking lot of
Good.
church.
It's good. And there's different ways of doing it, but you understand that I talked to him about what was happening instead of occupying a position of judging and scolding him, really is what I was ramping up to do, for just putting me in a position where I had to warn him over and over. All right, so that's a really important feature of a really healthy marriage is curiosity, and then focusing on process versus content. What's happening here? What's going on? This is happening in our relationship. Let's talk about what's happening, the dynamics in our relationship versus the problem that we're struggling with. All right, so let's talk also about individuality and intimacy. There is a tension between these two things that you have to hold in a healthy marriage. You're still an individual, but you're an individual in a one-flesh relationship. This is the greatest challenge to your individuality that you will ever have in a relationship because it's so close. And so as a result, this is going to be tested. And the danger is that one person's personality is subsumed by the other, or something else, or you're in constant conflict with one another in an attempt to hang on to your individuality. So I'm going to get a little bit into the differences of male and female psychology here, just for your information and for your interest, but let's identify individuality and intimacy respectively. Individuality is a sense of personal freedom, sovereignty over one's own body and mind, personal agency, the ability to choose, and clear personal boundaries. Intimacy is a sense of being connected, the joining of one's body and or mind to another, collaboration, the partnering of wills, and yielding of personal boundaries. Let's talk about a little bit about what happens in marriage. We're going to kind of go in and out of intimacy and individuality, not just physically, but emotionally. We're going to have conversations that bring us closer. Then we're going to have to go our respective ways. And there are going to be fragile stages as the result of that. When you're pulling out of intimacy mode, you're going to maybe trigger fears of abandonment. When you're coming out of individuality mode into intimacy, there might be some fears of engulfment. Just a lot of dynamics happen, and you have to navigate that as a married person, and that's very challenging. Some of the research that you might want to consider in this whole area is attachment styles. There are 3 basic adult attachment styles. One is an avoidant attachment style, which is characterized by the fear of losing individuality. I'm going to be engulfed. I'm going to be taken over by this other person. That's an avoidant attachment style. An anxious attachment style is characterized by the fear of losing intimacy or losing connection to that person. We might call it the fear of abandonment or the fear of rejection. Is that making sense so far? Okay, and then a secure attachment style really doesn't have much fear. You just feel very relaxed and secure in your relationship. Most of us are going to lean toward one of the first two, avoidant and anxious. Now I'm going to take a little poll here, and I'm going to give you two options, and I want to vote and see which one of you think which one is true. Okay, so the first option is men being more avoidant generally and women being more anxious generally in their attachment styles. And the second option is women overall being more avoidant and men being more anxious in their attachment styles. Okay, everybody understand the basics? Okay, let's vote. I'm asking, no, not me. I'm asking what science shows is the general case, a generalization of male versus female attachment styles.
Can you go back one slide for a second?
Okay. So, avoidant is fear of losing individuality, or we could say autonomy. And anxious is the fear of losing intimacy or losing the relationship, the connection, the bond. Fear of abandonment, you might call it. All right? So option number 1 is men are more avoidant overall, women are more anxious overall. Option number 2 is women are more avoidant overall, men are more anxious overall. Okay? If you think option number 1 is the case, raise your hand. How many of you think option number 2? All right. The ones that voted 1 are correct. Here's a little bit of science here. Across countries, men tend to be higher in avoidance while women are higher in anxiety. Here's another quote. The finding, while not necessarily surprising, is thought-provoking. Overall, men tended to be more avoidant and less anxious than women. Women, on the other hand, were more prone to being anxious. So as I studied this, I started thinking about Paul's writings and the fact that he talks to husbands, encouraging them to relate to their wives a certain way, and wives encouraging them to relate to their husbands a certain way. And I wondered if that indicated that he was aware of this dynamic in male versus female psychology. Again, men overall are more avoidant, more fearful of losing individuality or losing autonomy. Women overall are more anxious and fearful of losing intimacy. Well, it's interesting to me, I'm going to fast forward here, that these are the things Paul said to husbands: love, understand, and honor your wives. He said to wives, submit to and respect your husbands. Can you see what he's doing there? He's talking to husbands, giving them a language that they can use with their wives that will help alleviate or allay their most foundational fear, which is fear of losing the relationship. Love your wives. It's not that husbands don't need love. They need love. They're humans. We're all humans first and foremost. But he's giving the husbands a language that are likely to really hit the wife where she's the most insecure. And the same thing for the wives. He's not saying women don't need respect. In fact, he uses the word honor. You should honor your wives, and that's kind of, in a sense, respect. But he's telling wives in several places to respect their husbands, not because women don't need respect, but because that's talking in a language that will help alleviate his foundational fear that you're going to lose your autonomy to this relationship.
Correct.
I think that's what's going on. I think it's really kind of beautiful.
I think that's right.
Yeah. So respect language reduces anxiety about losing individuality. You're adequate and effective. And very often, I'll tell you, this happens a lot in marriage counseling, is I'll see this cycle where the wife is trying to express her needs to her husband, and he interprets it as, you're not enough as a husband. And men can be very threatened when they feel like they're not adequate. It really kind of gets to their jugular vein. And so you have to work with the wife, and the wife has to develop skills of how to convey her needs in a way that don't undercut his sense of adequacy. And then affection language reduces anxiety about losing intimacy. It tells the other person you're not going to be abandoned. I can think of relationships where people have said to me, I don't want to talk about this right now, but we will talk it through. I love you. I care about you. Please, let's just put a pause on it. That's all I need, is to be assured that the relationship is intact. So you understand what I'm saying here. The Lord was trying to convey to us what we needed in a marriage to hit the spot, in most cases, of our spouses' particular needs. I call it the aim for the majority effect. Of course, it's not true in all cases. There are some marriages in which the wife has a greater need for respect, the husband has a greater need for affection. It does happen. These are not categoric differences, but they tend to be that way. Sometimes men get breast cancer, sometimes women get Parkinson's, but for the most part, women are going to be more anxious, inclined toward anxiety in relationships, and men are going to be more inclined toward fear of losing autonomy. Any questions or comments so far? Just a few things to close up here. All right, let's talk about this word ginosko. Adam knew his wife. That's talking about what? Sex, sexual intimacy. Uses the same word for spiritual intimacy. Paul's speaking of Jesus, that I may know him, ginosko, I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings. So there's a connection between those two things. In knowing, two autonomous beings choose to blend into one. The will of each remains active, for love requires a choice. You can't lose your individuality in your marriage, because then love is gone. Where there's no freedom to choose, there's no love. But at the same time, the one flesh union occurs. It's a breathtaking mystery. Amen? So we're going to do an exercise to wind up here. There's several worksheets. The gnosko date is one where you just basically go on a date and talk about some deep stuff. And then the mystery questions are a list of questions that are basically open-ended questions that you can get conversations going with your spouse. And then we have this exercise called Know You Better Bingo. Somebody tell me what page that's on. And we're going to have you do that just to wind up here today. What's that? Page what?
54.
54. So what we want you to do... Oh, it is. Okay, good. All right, so this is how this works. It's kind of a game, so don't let it get too serious. But the point of the game, listen carefully, is to find out how well each of you know each other. It's a little complicated, but it's fun. Each person takes a sheet of paper and splits it into two columns. And you number both the columns from 1 to 25. Is there actually a sheet in the book? I can't remember. Then you fold the paper in half, and you write down your answers to all the questions on the first panel. Then you switch papers, and you write down, and this is the important part, what you think your partner will answer in the second panel. So what you have when you're done is a panel that says the answers to your questions and what your partner thinks you would answer to those questions. And you find out how accurate you are. We had one, David, that was it?
Maryland.
The highest one we got.
They got basically everything.
Yeah, there was a couple that got almost, and they were very young.
Yeah,
it was incredible. Yeah.
2 years married.
Yeah. So anyway, go ahead and it'll be a little hard to figure out, so raise your hand if you need some help. But let's do that for the next 15. And do you have anything to say, David?
No, that's great.
Okay.
You might need to explain it again and make sure it's clear, because I feel like...
Let me see. Can I just see the book for a second here? Okay. You do need a sheet of paper. So this is what you're going to do. Can I just take the sheet of paper to demonstrate? You're gonna line the paper, split it into two columns, and do 1 to 25 numbers, and line it. Draw a line across. Fold it. Then on the first panel, you're going to answer the questions for yourself. You're going to then give it to your, and so this is Jane's sheet.
So you're not peeking while your partner's...
You're not peeking. That's the whole idea. Don't peek. This is Jane's sheet. Jane answers the questions for herself. Then she gives her sheet to her partner, and he takes the second panel and answers the questions as he thinks Jane would answer them. So this is the Jane sheet, and it has her answers and his guess of what her answers will be on the same sheet. And then she does the same thing. Does this make sense? Okay. Oh, yeah, we have our quiz. Oh.
Oh, yeah, everybody look at the screen. Look at the screen. So there's Michael, and then that's my friend Nathan, and they own the same shirt.
That's crazy.
I sent that picture to Nathan, and Nathan just texted me. He said, I thought you photoshopped his head onto my shirt, but then he said, I realized I never wear undershirts. So I was trying to figure out how you Photoshop the undershirt, but they just own the same shirt.
That's crazy.
I gotta get a picture of that.
That is something. All right, so you calculated, did you tally everything up? What'd you come up with? How many are over 10 on either one of their sheets? Yes! Yes! Very good. Over 11. Okay. Over 12. Okay. Still strong. 13. Still strong. 14. Still several. 15. This is a process of odds. Okay, we've got one up there. Okay, a few of you. What was it? 16. Over 16. 17. Oh, you're giving me the exact. Okay, so I'm saying over. So how many are over 16? Over 16 total. 16 or over, I should say it that way. 17. 17 or over. 18 or over. 19 or over. Was that your hand up? Okay, I think we have a winner. Oh, okay, sorry. What's that? Oh, okay, 19 or over? Okay, raise your hand real tall so I can see it. Okay, 19 or over, raise. Don't scratch your nose for a second here. Okay, there's 2, right? Am I right? There's 2 that are 19 or over. Is that correct? All right, 20 or over?
I'm out.
21 or over?
What is this, Shark Tank? Is this Shark Tank?
You got 22? 23! We have a winner! All right, now tell us, okay. All right, stand up, tell us who you are.
You didn't know what? Favorite hymn?
I didn't know his favorite movie because he doesn't really watch movies.
Oh, okay, that's good.
And I wrote, I don't have a favorite hymn.
That's almost like 25. That's like.
That's
How
good.
do you not have a favorite hymn?
Okay.
Adventist? What?
Yeah, there's just so many to choose from.
So, it's not
So you guessed his, but did he guess your? How do you do on your?
No, I just didn't, I kind of just ran out of time on that. But yeah, I probably got 22.
Oh, that's good. What did you not guess of hers?
I didn't know the hymn. And
22 is good, dude. You should be proud of yourself. You hate what?
she doesn't like coffee or seaweed.
Do you like the smell of coffee?
She doesn't like any of it.
I'm starting to adjust the smell.
The smell is incredible.
I like the smell.
That's
My
great.
wife hates the taste of it. She thinks it's too bitter.
Oh,
You sound like Violetta. That's what she says. She's like, this is like burnt. What's wrong with it? Honey. The smell I love.
We had, when we were in high school, so we're high school sweethearts, so when we were in high school, my best friend was trying to do an analogy for a sermon, and he was talking about the more time you spend with God, the better you'll get to know Him. And so
you go ahead and finish out. You go ahead and finish.
So his idea was he was going to do something similar to this, and he pulled our youth pastor up with his wife, and Sarah and I up, and it became clear really quickly that we were actually beating them.
Oh, mercy.
So then he gave me the look, so we just started throwing.
You just started lying.
Yeah, I just started throwing and sandbagging for him. And Sarah was getting,
I'm like, my shoes are. Just randomly
and
putting numbers.
Sarah was getting mad because she doesn't like to get bad grades, and I was just trying to help my friend out. So we.
Because you were totally showing up the pastor that had been married. That's good. That's funny. That's really funny. Okay, Jen, what are we doing now? That was great.
we're almost done, but we're gonna do that little game that we do at the end.
The shoe game?
Yeah, the shoe game.
Do you know them? This is a fun game.
This is just fun. Okay, so is there a couple that will volunteer for just a kind of a funsy game where you kind of weigh in without consulting with each other on your various habits?
Not the Weavers.
Why not? Okay, is there a volunteer? Did you volunteer someone? Come on. It's just all light and fluffy. It's nothing too difficult. Is there a volunteer? A couple? Okay, I'm gonna appoint you. Joy and Ron. All right, and so think of questions.
No, I'm not.
Yes, think of questions, David. Come on. Help me out. You're going to take your shoe. Yes, very fluffy. Take your shoes off. You take your shoes off, and what you do is we're going to give you. How do we do this, David? This
was your idea.
Okay, you raise. Oh, you have to swap. Yeah, that's right.
Only one.
One of these.
This one. Okay. So they each have a pair of shoes with her represented and him represented. Okay. And you're going to lift the shoe that you think is the answer to the question. And we'll see if they're the same.
Hold them in your hands. Hold them in your hands.
At least we're not doing the version of this where you dunk the person's head, you know? Okay.
You want to pick the shoes up and hold them in your hands. So you lift up the shoe that you think is...
Yeah, that's it. What's that?
That's it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so who's the cleanest? And you, okay.
Agree.
Agree. Who's the most chatty at home? Oh. This is easy so
Who's
far.
the more careful driver?
Come on, Ron, make it fast.
So far, so good. Who's the most, what's that? Who's the most frugal with money? Okay. Who's the most boisterous in public? Who's the most self-conscious about physical appearance? Who's the most likely to have their feelings hurt? Oh man, we're batting 1,000 so far. Go ahead, throw some in. Who's the most generous with their time?
Good job. Who's more of a homebody? Okay.
Who's on screens the most? Oh, they have a first disagreement. The first disagreement.
We broke the code.
We found the rub, because you said him and he said you. Okay. Who's the most inclined to withdraw? I promise I won't get too heavy. Okay. Who's the most inclined to escalate? Okay. Who has the biggest wardrobe?
I see how that shoe went. That shoe went up a ways.
And this is going to be very close to that one. Who budgets the most for clothes? Who buys the most expensive toys? No, see? She buys stuff, but he buys big. Which one is the most callous in their sense of humor? Oh. David, help me.
I did help a few. I mean, they obviously been married forever. They only got one different.
I know. Let's find another one, though. Let's find another different. Which one is the most inclined to want to sit down and talk through things?
Who sleeps better? Okay.
Who makes more noise in their sleep? Who eats the loudest? Who eats the loudest? He raised his hand. You didn't do anything. Who eats the loudest? Neither of you?
Oh, that's funny.
All right. Well, it's been a great weekend. I'm going to let David...
No, you guys did great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's give him a hand. Give him a hand. That was good. The only ones you disagreed on was the screens one. That's funny. How long have you two been married?
49 years.
Oh, coming up on the big 5-0.
Man,
Morocco. Start preparing. I can highly recommend Morocco as a place to visit, by the way. It's very safe, very beautiful, and very inexpensive.
really?
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
10 out of 10. I highly recommend
It's
it.
a good choice, huh?
Yeah, it was a great choice. The reason that I chose that is that it was one of the places that Violetta has always talked about. She really wanted to go. There was a few in contention, but that was an easy one because I could just...
I've just been asking about it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
What about it made you want to go there?
Oh, I just had
Birds. Birds and rugs.
Yeah.
My wife loves rugs. She's super into handmade rugs. Yeah, and the food is delicious. It's a really great food it's a great place to visit for vegetarians.
Really?
Like certain place when you travel as a vegetarian,
It's
we're
hard.
vegetarian. It's very like going to Spain as a vegetarian is a nightmare. Because all you eat is pizza. Because all they eat is pork, right? They eat ham legs or what do they call it? Jamon or something. But then when you go to Greece is amazing for food for vegetarians because the food that they eat, like their actual food is so much of it's vegetarian, right? Like spanakopita and dolmatis and all that. Their actual food is vegetarian. And then Morocco's the same way because they have like the couscous and the tagine and all of this. So you get to eat the sort of local cuisine, but you get to eat it as if they don't look at you crazy. Like you go into a Spanish restaurant and ask them if they have anything vegetarian. They just like, what?
Why would you do that?
They just think it's crazy.
Yeah,
Doesn't
right,
really compute.
Right.
All right. Well, we hope this was a giant blessing to you. Remember that we have our Zoom sessions. Jennifer, when did we schedule those for? You'll
24th?
send an email to this effect.
Yeah, I'm gonna email.
But it's the
out to them.
24th.
Yeah.
24th, and it'll be at I think we said 5 Pacific time.
Correct.
And what are the 2 sessions, Jen, that we'll do? We'll
We're going
do
to talk
2
the
of those.
first week about conflict management, and the second week.
Oh, that's a
about,
really good one. I like that
yeah,
one.
and then about sex.
Which would be fun. I have a really good. Well, I'll tell you later. Maybe I'll tell that
That's a
in
good joke
the
for that
presentation.
one that he really likes telling.
No. It's so. What'll happen is Jennifer will send you a link because we have your
Yeah,
email, and
I'll
you
send
click
you a
on
link.
that link, and
Yeah.
it'll all work.
Check your inbox. Don't be one of these people that. No, you don't. You don't have an email. Did you give us your email? I need that.
We'll get it.
Yeah.
All right, Zach, come and say some things to us, meaningful things.
Hang on. Just along those lines, some of you switched with somebody or you're taking somebody's place, if you could just come put your name and email
Yes,
so
very
that she has your
important.
name and email so that you can be on the Zoom. So if you're not confident that she has your email, just come up here. We'll have the list right here and you can put your name and email right there for her.
And listen, if you guys are really anxious to get someone else to come to a Try This at Home workshop, we're going to be in Medford, Oregon next weekend. And we're going to be, I don't remember next year's schedule, but we have these scheduled from time
Where
to
would
time.
they go to
so-
see that schedule?
Yeah, what's that?
Where would they go to see that
They
schedule?
go to the same website that you went to, just trythisathomehub.com. Try this written out at homehub.com. We'll bring you to the master schedule of all the different events that we're having, and you can click on those and sign up for whatever you want to go to. Keep us in your prayers. We want to make T-shirts. We want to get books written. We want to get the whole series out sometime before I die. So,
And you're going to be coming around doing others after you do marriage? You're going to come around and do
hopefully,
families?
we're not sure about
If you
dating.
don't break up.
How we're, yeah,
Oh, dating.
yeah. We're doing a dating type thing for Neil Konda's youth
Young
and
adults. Young adults go to Leone
retreat
Meadows.
That's happening at Leone Meadows.
Yeah.
The first weekend of December. So we're going to start doing that material. And eventually we're going to get to parenting, which is a really important one as well. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Were you blessed? Super. Thank you so much. You could be doing a million different things, and you came here, and we are richly blessed. Amen.